to be here today amongst all of you. It's a pleasure to be conducting the wedding, the Muslim marriage ceremony of Kavita and Jacob. And as I can see, you're all very good people. I can see just by meeting you all and talking to you all, and it's a real pleasure to be here and to be a part of this. It's a real honour. And just before I start, I'd like to just briefly explain how the service will take place. Okay, so I'll start off with a recitation from the Quran, okay, which will last about 3 minutes or so. So I'll start off with the recitation of the Quran. You won't understand obviously what's being said, but try to feel it. If that makes sense. Try to feel the rhythm. Try to feel the verses. Try to feel the different sounds, and try to connect with that. Okay, because as Muslims we believe it's the truth. It's one of the revelations of God. As well as the Bible, for instance. It's just another revelation of God. And in revelations of God, ultimately there is truth. And it says in the Quran, in fact, that when the Quran is recited, listen to it attentively, so that you may achieve or have the mercy of God showered upon you. And this is the time when you really want the mercy of God to be showered upon all of us, as these two obviously are taking such a big step in their lives. And then after that, what I will do is I'll deliver a speech based on the important aspects of marriage that Kavita and Jacob wanted me to share with you all today. And again, it's truly an honour to be able to share their thoughts with you all, and to be the medium or to be the translator of that. That will be followed by the vows. Okay, and I'll ask them both whether they accept each other as man and wife, and then we will do the signatures. Okay, so just the official paperwork, which is over there, and then that will be followed up with a short supplication, short prayer in Arabic and English. Okay, so all in all, it should be about 25 minutes or so. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to, without further ado, I'm going to start with the Quranic recitation. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا واصبر على ما يقولون واهجرهم هجرا جميلا وذرني والمكذبين أولي النعمة ومهلهم قليلا إن لدينا أنكالا وجحيما وطعاما ذا غصة وعذابا أليما يوم ترجف الأرض والجبال وكانت الجبال كثيبا مهيلا إنا أرسلنا إليكم رسولا شاهدا عليكم كما أرسلنا إلى فرعون رسولا فعصى فرعون الرسول فأخذناه أخذا وبيلا فكيف تتقون إن كفرتم يوما يجعل الولدان شيبا السماء منفطر به كان وعده مفعولا إن سبيلا إن ربك يعلم أنك تقوم أدنى من ثلثي الليل ونصفه وثلثه وطائفة من الذين معك والله يقدر الليل والنهار علم أن لن تحصوا فتاب عليكم فقرؤوا ما تيسر من القرآن علم أن سيكون منكم مرضى وآخرون يضربون في الأرض يبتغون من فضل الله وآخرون يقاتلون في سبيل الله فاقرؤوا ما تيسر منه وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير تجدوه عند الله هو خيرا وأعظم أجرا واستغفروا الله إن الله غفور رحيم صدق الله العظيم. All praise is due to God. We constantly seek His help. We constantly seek His forgiveness. And He whomsoever God guides, none can misguide. And He whomsoever He allows to stray, none can guide. And I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except God, and that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the final messenger of God. You know, when I look at these two, I look at something really beautiful here today. I've always thought to myself that, as I'm sure most of you, will agree with me, that good marriages involve good people. Good marriages involve good people. And there's nothing better than starting off that marriage by reminding ourselves of the two that we have sat here today. When I asked Jacob and Kavita about what it is about each other that they find has brought them together with one another. I know Kavita said about Jacob, and I'm sure many of you will testify to this as well and agree with this, his kindness as a human being, his generosity, and also his thirst for knowledge in life, just about thirst for knowledge about life in general, which is such a beautiful thing to have. Jacob, as many of you again will agree, and I can even feel this about Jacob, that he's a person that leads by example. He inspires people, he motivates people, and that's what life is about, right? Inspiring and motivating people to do good. A person that follows his words by his actions. Because words are so empty nowadays. And for somebody to have that quality is really a quality of a person who will make a really good husband. And I think also Kavita mentioned that Jacob is that type of individual who, not just for her, but believes in those people around him. He makes them push their boundaries and makes people believe that they can achieve whatever goals and ambitions they want to achieve. And that in itself is such a beautiful thing to have as a person. And when I asked Jacob about, obviously, Kavita, one of the first things he did mention was obviously her sense of humor. you know, her lightheartedness in life, but also her humility as a human being, and the willingness to want to change for the better. You know, no matter how good you become in life as a person, you still want to be able to have that humility so that you can learn about life and you can better yourself as a person. And in fact, this is integral to a marriage, because in fact, God the Most Merciful says in the Quran that Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawm, that indeed Allah, or indeed God, does not change the condition of a people, like a whole qawm, like a people, a society, hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim, until they change their own selves individually. And as these two, remember, you know, as you're getting married now, that as long as you as individuals always look to better yourselves on a daily basis, you know, it will not just help society in general, but it will help your marriage flourish. And that is something that you should always hold very dear to yourselves. Marriage is obviously leads to families, and families ultimately become the cornerstone of society. And when I asked both of them about their own families, you know, they've got such model families, both of them, you know. And families are essentially a unit. And what's important within that unit is for that communication to always be there, for that support to always be there, and to always, as a family, be working together to achieve higher purposes. And sometimes there are gaps in our own families, you know, things that we as a human being, as an individual, cannot fill. We cannot fill it because this is what God has given us. But when we get married, we become part of a greater family, a bigger family. You know, you're one family now. With each other's families, you're all ultimately, essentially one family. And you just have to remember that the things that you hold dear to yourselves, that you've always wanted in your own families, or you have had in your own families, you know, that unconditional love, that unconditional support, that unconditional kindness, that unconditional respect, these are things that you have to continue in your bigger family. And something Jacob shared with me, which was very beautiful when I read it, that what your very good friend once told you. You know, and I think if there's anything you can really think of about how to make your own families, or how a family should be, Jacob said it so beautifully, that it is up to us to create our own families in an image that our children would be proud of. And that's what you both have here today, an opportunity to do that, to create a family the way you would want to create a family. And it all starts with marriage. And marriage, let me put this in perspective for you all, today's union. Let me put it all in perspective for you all, what it is. Before you both were even born, before any of you were born, before I was born, before our parents were even born, or our grandparents, or even our generations, our ancestors, before they were even born, before mankind was even put on this earth, before the creation of man, before our existence, God had already predestined that you two would be together here today. And the world has conspired in such a beautiful way. You know, the world has lived its, you know, it's been the world, things have happened in the world, but everything has happened precisely so that you two would meet, so that you two would get to know one another, and that you two would decide to, in fact, marry each other. That's how powerful this coming together of you two is today. And that should serve as a reminder for you both that, in fact, God is taking care of you. He's looking after you. And He is guiding you both. He's guided you both to each other. And in fact, when you think of it that way, you have to remember the responsibility on you both, now that you are getting married, that you both have to always be the best people that you can be for each other. Every day, strive to be a better person. Every day. And inshallah, God will keep guiding you. When it comes to marriage in the Quran, there is a verse specific to marriage. When God says, in Arabic, He says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. That from amongst His signs, from amongst His miracles even, is that He created for you all from your own selves. So He created for you all from your own self a spouse. Why? لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. So that you may find tranquility in them. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And He produced between you both love and mercy. And He produced between you both love and mercy. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Indeed, in that are signs for people who reflect, for people who think. So let us think about this verse. When we think of tranquility, we think of being able to think clearly. We think of being able to be, a period of, in fact, calm. A period of calm. And when you have this calm, which God grants you as a gift immediately as soon as you're married, it gives you the opportunity, or it gives you the time, this clarity. This gives you the time to think about how to love each other. It gives you the time to really think about how I can listen to my spouse. It gives you the time to think about how can I understand him more, how can I understand her more. It gives you the time, this tranquility does, this clarity does. It gives you the time to be able to understand how to grow together as a couple, so that your example is a beautiful example for others to see. And He produces between you both love and mercy. Now this love, this muwadda in Arabic, it's not just a feeling of love that you have, but it is, in fact, tokens of affection. It's not just a feeling that you have and you harbour inside of you. It's something that you show. There's a saying, or there's a tradition from the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, where in fact, he used to lead a very simple life. He didn't have much. But the simple things in life didn't make him forget what was important. So he would always sit with his wife and eat dinner. The one meal of the day. He would always sit with her when she would eat. He would sit with her. And not just that, when they would eat, they would in fact do such beautiful things. So when his wife would drink from a cup, he would in fact drink from the same cup, to show that token of affection. And he wouldn't just drink from the same cup, but he would drink from it in exactly the same place where his wife would drink from as well, to show her, his affection, his love for her. So that's what ultimately this affection is, how you show this affection. And when you show this affection, you remind each other about how much you love each other. You remind each other about how much you respect one another. In a time when respect is so easily thrown away, you remind each other about how much you admire each other. Tokens of affection. So He doesn't just produce love between you both, but He produces mercy. And this mercy, it can be understood in this again, this tradition of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And him and his wife had to go somewhere. And they were running late. And he was ready to go. He was waiting by his horse, he was ready to go. And she came really late. And she had only felt that she had let down her husband, but she had let down the Prophet of God. She started crying. She couldn't even bring herself to say words, but she was just crying. And he wiped away her tears. And he said, the journey means nothing. Your tears mean more to me. And he wiped away her tears and he kissed her eyes. And he reminded her, of how much he loved her through that act of mercy towards his wife. So rather than allowing any type of negativity to come between him and his wife in a time, that was, or in a situation that was testing him, he basically let his love flow for her. And mercy is not just about forgiveness. Because when you think of forgiveness, you think of somebody making a mistake, right? But in fact, as human beings, we realize that nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. And being humble to that fact, that nobody's perfect, will allow you to show compassion to one another, right? And as Jacob really beautifully said, in fact, that nobody is perfect, but we are still made equal, right? Nobody's perfect, but we can be equal. And that is something really beautiful to remember. In the Quran as well, God gives the metaphorical expression of husbands as wives as garments. He says, هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنْ. That they are a garment for you, that she is a garment for you, and you are a garment for her. One garment. That's all it is, one garment. A garment of equality. A garment of equality, of consistency. And when you think that you're made of the same garment, you remember that, do you know what? You represent each other through your own actions. So the way you act as a human being, as a person, whether or not she's there, whether or not he's there, will always be representative of your spouse. So when she's not there and you're always respectful, you're respecting her. When she's not there and you're being kind to others, it's reflective of her kindness. And when she's not there and you're being true to others, she is always being, it's a reflection of her true self as well, as a human being. So as garments, you complement one another, you protect one another, you take care of one another. And I asked Jacob, in fact, about legacy. Because in fact, in the Quran, God talks about that He created from one man, his spouse, and a multitude of men and women. Millions and billions of people, right? Millions and billions of people. But there's something much more powerful than these numbers. And that is values being passed down. And I want you to remember the values that you discussed with me as values that you will always pass on to others, inshallah. One is always being patient as a human being. Always being patient as a human being. That things don't just happen straight away, they take time. Always being patient. Next one is never settling for second best in life. Always believing that you can be the best that you can be. You can be the best husband to her. She can be the best wife to you. You're never settling for second best, especially with the people that you love. And finally, a beautiful one that Jacob reminded me of was never forget your history. Because if it wasn't for our ancestors and the difficulties that they went through, we would not be here today. And it's always important to respect those who cannot be here today. who in fact, if they were to even see what was happening here today, they would be so proud of you both. They would be really proud of you all. So always have respect for those that perhaps are not even here today, but because of them, you are here today. And I asked, finally, in regards to a poetic reflection regarding marriage, to finish off on. And this is in fact similar to a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that you can marry a person for their wealth, but money will perish. You can marry a person for their beauty, but their beauty will go. You can marry a person because of their prestige or power, but even that strength will one day go. But if you marry a person because they are a pious, righteous person who fears God, that they will always hold your honor, they will always be affectionate towards you, and they will always help you get closer to God. And essentially your love story will last forever. Because as Muslims we believe it's not till death do us part, but we will be reunited in heaven. So I pray that these two are a guide for one another towards that heaven, towards that paradise, living it in this world and in the hereafter. Now before I ask you both to accept one another in marriage, let me remind you both about what you're doing, okay? Because it's not fun and games, it's a very beautiful moment. And number one is that by accepting each other for marriage, you're making the ultimate acceptance of the other person, how they are as a person. And you are accepting them, you're accepting Jacob for how he is, and you're accepting Kavita for how she is. That's what you're firstly doing. Secondly, you're choosing to go through life together with only each other. You know, and it's a big choice, committing your life to one person for the rest of your life. And you're also making a commitment to become better people as you go on in your marriage. Committing to become a better person with each other, for each other. And finally, you're putting the ultimate faith and trust in each other. And are you both okay with that? Yeah? 100%. Kavita? Good, excellent. Perfect. If you can just pass me those papers to do that. For a second. Thank you. It's just something on here that I just want to read. Okay? So I'm going to start with the vows, right? And I'm going to start with you, Kavita, first. Okay? It's ladies first. Always. So, to be your lawfully wedded husband, do you accept? Yes. I'll ask you again. To be your lawfully wedded husband, do you accept?
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you one final time. To be your lawfully wedded husband.
Yes.
Excellent. To be your lawfully wedded wife.
Yes.
Again. To be your lawfully wedded wife.
Yes.
And finally, to be your lawfully wedded wife.
Yes.